This is Gareth Southgate, and this is the Three Lions podcast.
Hello and welcome along to the Three Lions podcast. My name's Russell Osborne. Fast approaching the end of 2019 and the start of 2020. And just like the start of this year, we're looking at the chance of some silverware. 2019 we went in with high hopes of the newly formed Nations League finals. Sadly, Holland put us out, who then went on to meet Portugal, who went on to take the trophy on home soil. Although there was the bonus of winning a second successive penalty shootout when we faced Switzerland. 2020 brings us another tournament, one we know, the European Championships. Although this time it's slightly different as it's played across the continent. Personally, I'm not a real big fan of the idea. I'd rather see it hosted by one or shared by two neighbouring countries. But we'll wait and see. It may be a success. I may change my tune. Although, to be fair, I won't care if we end up lifting the trophy at the end of it. But that's still to come. But I thought I'd take a look back at the past year with the help of some listeners. On the podcast front, I've totted up how many I've put out there over the year. 31, in fact. No appearance on the Sports Personality of the Year this year, but a piece in the England programme against Montenegro, the 1000th game, which was great. And we've spoken with loads of great people, be it people with an England interest, foreign opposing supporters, whom I always appreciate, as generally English isn't their mother tongue. So to put themselves out there on a podcast is very brave. And plus we've spoken with some who have represented the Three Lions on the biggest stage. All the podcasts are still available via your usual podcast platform or at threelionspodcast.com. So if you're a new listener, welcome along. Hopefully you'll like some of what you'll hear and go back and check out some of the full episodes. And whilst you're at it, please do leave a review on the likes of iTunes. Apparently, it makes it more visible for others to find it. So, let's go back to the beginning of the year. Our first episode was with shirt guru Simon Shakeshaft, or Shaky, who let me get my hands on some actual England match-worn shirts.
If I could just describe it, it's simply, I say simply in the the loosest term, as it were, it's a pure red long-sleeved shirt with a round neck with just a stitched Three Lions badge on it. It feels beautiful. It feels, and you mentioned pyjamas earlier, it almost feels like those pyjamas I had when I was a child, lovely and warm. And on the back is a lovely white, pure stitched number 6. And it obviously, it evokes memories of a summer of 1966. Not actually from 1966, as you're going to maybe explain to me, but this is an England shirt as worn by Bobby Moore that almost takes us back, not to the beginning, but to where supporters will recognise shirts.
You know, an Englishman would get a passion for his country's football team, would get a little bit of a flutter when you see a shirt like this.
I'm almost shaking. I am shaking.
When you put a shirt like this in your hand, that's what I'm trying to say. When I've been fortunate enough to be in the position I've been to handle some of the unbelievable shirts within Nell's collection, and this is one. 100% cotton, England, crew neck, long sleeve.
Then the first of our conversations with former internationals began with former Tottenham defender Gary Stevens, who told me about playing for England in the 1986 Mexico World Cup and Maradona.
Well, yes, the quarterfinals. Unfortunately, you were on the bench for that one. And let's cut to the chase. Did you see it? We're going to talk hand of God. Did you see it from the bench?
The simple answer is no, I didn't. We weren't sure. And again, in the Azteca Stadium, the dugout was obviously on the halfway line, but it was set, I don't know, maybe 10 yards back from the pitch, maybe a touch further. And it was literally, you were down in the ground. So your head was maybe a foot above pitch level. It was a shocking place to observe a game from. And if you worked out the yardage, it's probably 70 yards from where we were to where the incident was. All we knew was that something had gone wrong, because as the ball looped up in the air from Steve Hodge, and we're seeing Peter Shilton coming out and he's going to punch it, there's only one thing that's going to happen, and that's Peter Shilton's going to punch it, because he's got a run, he's got the advantage, he's got his arm. And as Diego Maradona challenged for it, somehow the ball went past Peter Shilton and he punched nothing. And then, of course, there's Terry Fenwick and there's Terry Butcher, indicating to the referee that it's a handball. My namesake and Gary Stevens of Everton and Kenny Sanson have rushed over to the linesman. They're saying it's handball. All I can assume is that the referee didn't see it from where he was, because if he had, he has to give it. You could say that Diego Maradona did it quite brilliantly, because it was very subtle, almost like the sleight of hand of a magician. But obviously it didn't help our cause too much. No. And, somewhat aggrieved, I suppose, if you say, well, if you found yourself in that type of position yourself, would you maybe do similar? I dare say at some stage most of us have, in training, in a match, but maybe not in a World Cup quarter-final, eh?
Now, the England Supporters Club is the organisation that makes it possible for supporters to attend England games and England away games. Now, I spoke with Richard Weeks, who gave us an insight as to what it is they do behind the scenes for supporters.
I'm sure a lot of members will know it's sort of had many guises since around about 1990. A multitude of different names. I'm far too young and I've not been here long enough to remember all of them. But so it started around 1990, sort of took off around Euro 96, various reasons. And it's sort of had its peaks and its lows and things like that. But ultimately, we are kind of here to try and sort of represent the England supporters and try and do as best we can by them. There's three of us within the team. So there's the boss, which is Harpreet, which you all know from the ticket collection points. There's myself and there's Lauren as well. So sort of our roles are really dealing with specifically around away games. There's a lot of work around sort of ticket allocations, security, actually receiving and allocating the tickets, getting ticket collection points in place, the travel guides, the information we send out.
You mentioned fan forums there. Obviously, last year before the World Cup, you had a couple, one at Walsall and one at Leeds. Is there any plans to do any more in the future?
Always. So there'll definitely be ones in the build-up to Euro 2020. It's always something that I think people think is a great thing and loads of people will attend. But then sometimes we don't get the interest back. So we've had to cancel a few, like in Newcastle, I think one in the Midlands, where we advertised it didn't get enough interest. Yeah. And I think there's we always try to organise these sorts of things, because it is important to try and engage with people outside London.
Now, 2019 was the Women's World Cup. It was held in France and the 5th appearance for the Lionesses. Now, alongside Jill Coulthard and Mary Phillips, I spoke with Claire Rafferty, who played in the 2015 tournament. And this is what she said about playing the then hosts, Canada.
That was kind of when it really started to hit home that, wow, we're going to be in a quarterfinal of a World Cup. That's absolutely massive.
Well, that massive game came against the hosts, didn't it? Against Canada.
And we were in Vancouver as well, so we'd flown to Vancouver, and obviously Vancouver's beautiful, isn't it? But, it really had World Cup fever.
Right.
the city, and you could kind of, as soon as we got there, you could feel the buzz. We were playing Canada, and I think the day before it was Canada Day.
Okay.
Or the day after, but either way, it was massive. There was literally everyone you looked at was wearing Canada shirt, whether it was for the football or not. They were just really kind of going for it. And I just remember walking out onto that pitch, and I think it was a closed over stadium. It was really quite weird, and it just felt the atmosphere. It was just electric. I don't think it sounded like there was not one English fan in there. So yeah, probably 30,000 Canadian fans, all in red and white, cheering for their team. And I think early on, Jodie nicked the goal because they made a mistake at the back. And I remember then thinking, oh my God, this is, something's happening here. We're really, the luck's really for us, because I remember it was quite a big mistake for their centre back, and Jodie just capitalised. And then I think we scored again, and then they scored. Yeah,
Lucy Bronze scored about 3-4 minutes later, and they pulled another one back just before half time.
Yeah, Sinclair pulled one back before half time, and I remember going in half time and just being so hyped up on adrenaline, just because of the crowd and the fact we were up, and and then we just literally rode the wave again and again and again, because they were coming at us, and I think KB got an allergic reaction to the 3G pitch in her eye. And
really?
Siobhan Chamberlain had to come on, so it was quite a big substitution to make. And she made like some last minute save on the line and stuff. So it was really backs against the wall. And yeah, I mean, after that, when that final whistle went, I just I think that's probably one of the best memories I've got of football, that moment, because I just remember everyone looking up and everyone running onto the pitch, just like throwing their shirts around, and just
excellent.
It gives me goosebumps actually thinking about that.
With England's 1000th match taking place in November, I took it as an opportunity to dig into the history of England's very first international match, which was played on a cricket pitch in Scotland in 1872. I like to think I put a lot of effort into each and every podcast I produce, but this one is probably the one I'm most proud of. I actually started planning it back in March. Took a fair bit of research and a lot of emails and phone calls and a fair few miles. I took a trip to Glasgow to visit Hampden Park, where they have a great museum with loads of details about the game. I also took in the actual venue, the West of Scotland Cricket Club. And I was also able to speak with a distant relative of the England captain of the game, Cuthbert Ottaway.
Cuthbert Ottaway was the third great-grandfather of Brooke Hunter, and I'm very honoured to be joined by her, and she's speaking to me from Toronto in Canada. Brooke, hello there.
Hi, Russell.
When I began this project, I was investigating the very first game. I came across Cuthbert, and I thought, wow, could I really speak with a family member, a family descendant? What could you tell us about Cuthbert?
Well, he had one daughter, who had one daughter, who had one daughter, who had me. From what I understand, he came from a good family, a small family. His dad was the mayor of Dover in Kent, and he was an only child, so a very cloistered environment. And at school, being that level of athlete across that many sports, oh boy, would he have been popular, huh?
Yes.
He was captain of both the football team and the cricket team at Oxford.
Euro 2020 is next year, and the draw for the tournament was made. I was fortunate enough to go to Wembley to watch it unfold on the telly in the company of former Three Lions goalkeeper David Seaman. And he told me about his memories of Euro 96 and that penalty save.
I was behind the goal at Wembley in 96. What went through your head there and the moment afterwards when the ball ended up with Gaza?
and Tony Adams kissing you.
Yeah, well, that's the biggest thing I remember is Tony's kiss.
Really?
Weirdly enough, yeah, because I remember him having a bristly face. And I was thinking, yeah. But no, obviously, the penalty was the penalty, and then I knew that Gary McAllister was a good penalty taker, and I knew he puts it either side, so I just guessed to my right, and he hit it so hard. The ball, but I must say, the ball did start moving off the spot. No. And he hit it with pace, and I just managed to get my elbow on it, and it landed right on the point of my elbow, shot over the crossbar, and it was just great relief because we were 1-0 up at the time and we were struggling a little bit. The ball went out for a corner. I remember it coming in, there was a free kick, I got the ball down or something and then played it out. I don't even remember who to, and then they played it to Gaza, and then within 2 minutes of me making my penalty save, we're 2-0 up. Yeah. And it was just a great time, and a great time for me, great time for Gaza as well.
Clive Allen was up next. Now, he only won 5 caps, but he was more than happy to tell me about them, including his England debut.
When it did finally come, you were playing at QPR, and it came as an England tour. And I guess, me personally, Wembley would obviously be a great place to start. But you started somewhere, not at Wembley, but somewhere equally as great, didn't you?
Well, it's quite remarkable. Everybody knows my England debut. And when I say to people, tell me who it was, and they say, no, I can't remember. And I say, I only have to say one name, and that's John Barnes. And they go, no, really? So I said, yes, really. Obviously, everybody remembers the memorable goal that John Barnes scored in American Art in Brazil. I was on the bench at that moment when he run through an amazing run, incredible goal. And then I came on for Tony Woodcock to win my first England cap in the American Art with England winning 2-0. So a quite unbelievable start. As you rightly say, I think every schoolboy's dream is to play at Wembley for England. But for me to make my debut in the American Art against Brazil was something quite extraordinary.
There's so many other episodes to mention, so many other people too that I spoke with. Glenn Isherwood, Cam Melling, Steve Hopper, Jack Gordon-Brown, Glyn Davis too. And they're all worth searching back through threelionspodcast.com to hear what they have to say. So thank you for their time. But let's start our look back over 2019 with the senior men. Now, they played 10 times this year, and for the first time since 1993, every one of our games has had something at stake. Be it Euro 2020 points or Nations League final games. No friendlies. Stark contrast to 1994, when all England did play was friendlies. 6, no less. A year before that, 1993, featured 8 World Cup qualifiers and 3 US Cup tournament games. And only 1971 before that did we play it during the year with no friendlies. 6 Euro qualifiers and 3 home championship games. Although it's open to debate whether they're actually classed as friendlies. Now next year, we already know of 4 friendlies and a minimum of 3 a maximum 7, fingers crossed, Euro 2020 games and 6 Nations League matches. Next year, we'll be busy, and the wallet, well, that's going to take a hammering. But as a comparison to 2018, that saw us play 17 games, and both previous home tournaments, in 1996, we played 12 times, and back in 1966, 17 times. So looking back over the year, 10 games, of which I managed to get to 8 of them. And it started with that 5-0 win over the Czech Republic. Raheem Sterling getting a hat-trick that day, Harry Kane and an own goal. We then faced Montenegro away in the Euro qualifiers. Another 5 goals for England, but we did concede early on. Michael Keane got a header, Ross Barkley got 2, Kane and Sterling 1 each. Then it was time for the Nations League in June. That first game against the Netherlands, where we went down by 3-1. Marcus Rashford getting our goal, which meant we went on to the 3rd and 4th place game. That was hard work watching from the stands. Quite hot there in Guimarães, but we did win it 5-6 on penalties. And it was one as well. Jordan Pickford had an effect on in goal, saving, and as well putting one away. Come September, we were back in Euro qualifying action. Home to Bulgaria. Harry Kane got 3 and Raheem Sterling got 1 as we ran out 4-0 winners. Then we went down to St Mary's in Southampton. England 5, Kosovo 3. What a topsy-turvy game that was. Raheem Sterling, Harry Kane, there was an own goal there, and Jadon Sancho got on the score sheet twice. Then the only blemish on our Euro qualifying campaign came away in Prague at the Czech Republic, where we went 2-1 down. Harry Kane got that opening goal from the spot, but it just wasn't our day. Nothing seemed to click then. Then we went to Bulgaria. 6-0 we ran out, but that was of course only half the story. Obviously a lot went on off the pitch in that game. But Marcus Rashford opened the scoring, Ross Barkley got 2, Sterling got 2 and Harry Kane got 1. We then faced Montenegro in the 1000th game for England. That was in November. Oxlade-Chamberlain got 1, Harry Kane got 3, Marcus Rashford got 1 and Tammy Abraham got his first England goal. There was an own goal too. And then finally the last game in the qualifying campaign came away in Pristina in Kosovo, where we ran out 4-0 winners. Thanks to Harry Kane, Marcus Rashford, Mason Mount, and Harry Kane finished up scoring in every single Euro qualifying round. So we played 10, we won 7, drew 1, and lost 2 throughout the year. We scored 38 and only conceded 9. I say Harry Kane got a lot of the goals, 12 in fact. Raheem Sterling got 8, Ross Barkley got 4, as did Marcus Rashford. 3 own goals throughout the qualifying campaign. Jadon Sancho got 2 and 1 each for Michael Keane, Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain, Harry Winks, Mason Mount and Tammy Abraham. Personal highlights for me? Well, they included the Nations League in Portugal in June. Whilst the result wasn't really what we wanted, I had a great time staying in a shared villa just outside of Porto with many other England fans. Great company, great food, great experience. Plus as well, that trip to Kosovo, a visit that I'll always remember. The people, the place, again, the whole experience. I spoke with some regulars on the podcast over the past year about their highlights, and this is what they had to say. Okay, let's welcome back. It's always a pleasure, as always, Dom Smith from englandfootball.org. Hello there.
Hello.
Englandfootball.org. Been another good year for you, hasn't it?
It has. I've grabbed a few more interviews, spoken to Henry Winter, Kenny Sansom, Darren Anderton. Oh, and Peter Shilton, of course, as well.
Yes, yeah, I read that one. That was a good one. Always good to hear from the top English male capper, isn't he?
Absolutely, 125 caps. Rooney came close, but he never did it. Not quite.
Well, you never know. You might have another comeback.
Oh, I don't know. That'd be a bit of a farce, wouldn't it? I wouldn't mind, but it would be a bit of a farce.
No, I think he may have. His England days are gone. It's been good year for you online. How about on the pitch? What's been your 2019 highlight? It's been a few to choose from.
Yeah, I've gone for England's 1,000th game.
Oh, yeah.
England 7, Montenegro 0, because I went to every home game this year, so that was one of the ones I went to. And I can't explain. I know a lot of England fans think that there's something quite commercial and sort of there's no atmosphere at the new Wembley, but I feel like those cold sort of October, November nights are quite exciting. I know they're often friendlies or qualifiers, but you can't affect that. They are fun games to go to, and to score 7 against Montenegro, who the first 3 times we played, we drew with every single time. It's a pretty good turn up, really.
Yeah, that was a good one. And Harry Kane got a hat-trick that night, didn't he?
He did. And Tammy Abraham came on for him and got his first England goal. It was obviously the 1,000th international. So at halftime, some of the England legends were lauded on the pitch. I remember seeing Gazza, David Seaman, Rooney, Defoe, Tony Adams, quite a lot more. to be honest, I thought they could have made a bit more of them coming onto the pitch. I know that the matchday programme was a really good one. You featured in that as well, didn't you?
Oh, yeah, nice one. Thanks for getting that in.
Yeah, no, I gave that a good read, and I thought that was a really well made programme. But in terms of the legends, I thought they could maybe made a bit more of them coming on. You know, these are players that are some of the only reasons we've even got to latter stages in tournaments before, and all they did was walk on like some kind of press party and walk off. But you know, in terms of the stats, it was our biggest win since March 2013, and our biggest win ever at the new Wembley. Yeah, which I think is a brilliant way to cap off the 1000th international.
Yes, I agree. And looking forward to next year, it's going to be a big one. What do you predict for 2020?
I mean, I think it's fair to predict that we're going to win the group. I don't think it's at all fair to predict what's going to go from there, because, of course, if we win the group, we play second in terms of France, Portugal, and Germany. Even that, I don't know who to call. Germany are the home team in that group, so they play all their games in. Is it Munich? I think. Yeah.
Yes.
So you know, that might be telling, but we'll see. I mean, I think we can win it. Where do I think we'll get to? I think we're going to go out in the semi-final.
Okay, well, let's see. No doubt we will. Well, I can guarantee we will talk throughout 2020. Dom Smith, englandfootball.org. I wish you a Merry Christmas and all the best for the new year.
And I return it to you. Thank you very much.
It's always a pleasure to welcome back CJ Joyner to the Three Lions podcast on this, our 2019 look back. CJ, you there?
Yeah, I'm all good, Russell. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad, thank you. 2019, what's been that highlight?
The way how we've taken teams apart.
Right, yeah.
Throughout the years, we've taken your San Marinos and Andorras apart and so on, haven't we? These mid-tier were traditionally mid-tier teams. You're talking Czech Republic, Bulgaria. I mean, your Montenegros and stuff like that as well, that are kind of like lower down mid-tier / upper lower tier. If you can bracket them. Aside from a blip, we've destroyed every team we've played, haven't we? So, and obviously that blip was against the Czech Republic. And then when we played against the better teams, Switzerland and Holland, we've actually given them a game. Do you know what I mean? We have, and Switzerland we should have beaten in 90 minutes, and obviously it's nice to have a penalty shootout win. Holland, we probably should have beaten them. Really, I've been very, very, very happy with the year, to be honest. The overall highlight is probably that Bulgaria game and the way our players and our fans behaved in that stadium, and the way how we reacted to what was going on. A little bit as well against Montenegro. That was pretty good. However, on the pitch, when you look at football, just the fact that like we're brushing these teams aside when there's a lot of the nations that aren't doing that. And that's just a positive that we just got to look at. And the way our Southgate has reacted to games, I've said it a few times on this pod, actually, where we look at the likes of when we go 1-0 down, like we did Podgorica and at Southampton, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah, early on in the game, yes. Very within a minute, yes.
Well, yeah. And you look how we reacted. That was a fantastic game. It was absolutely brilliant, that was. But either way, like I said, the way how we've just brushed the team aside afterwards, and it's almost like Southgate has just said to them, look, go out, do what you can do. Don't worry about if you go 1-0 down, it's fine. If you go 2-1 down, it's fine. 3-2 down, it's fine. You've just got to make sure you put on a show afterwards. And that's kind of what they've been able to do.
I think you're right. And hopefully that can carry on to next year.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not too concerned, to be honest, if we go 1-0 down against any side, really. I mean, next year going into, when we've won that group with 9 points, and we've got we've got a plus 12 goal difference from the group, or whatever we might be able to dream about. Obviously, 10 of them would be against Scotland, and then the other, the narrow 1-0 wins against against the Czech Republic and
Croatia.
Croatia, yeah. But coming back against the French or the Germans, that'd be fantastic in that second round, wouldn't it?
Last minute winner, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, no, let's hope so. We'll no doubt, undoubtedly, speak before then. CJ, thank you very much for joining us over this past year. And yeah, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year to you.
Same to you, Russ.
And welcome back to the Three Lions podcast, England blogger Matt Asprey. Matt, hello there.
Hi, Russell. How are you, mate?
All good, thank you. 2019, what have you made of it?
It's been a good year for England, I think. I mean, obviously got the Euro 2020 qualification all secured, and also had the Nations League finals as well. So England back in a semi-final action, and yeah, it's just been a very solid year, and obviously had England women's as well in the World Cup. I think it's been a great year for England in terms of international football.
Yes. Any particular moment that really stood out for you?
Well, there are multiple moments, but I think the one that stood out really was the Women's World Cup. I mean, it couldn't have been any more perfect with having the men getting to the semi-finals of Russia, then the women going very late into the tournament, and it was just a pity. Obviously, victory. We almost got ourselves back on level terms with the USA. It wasn't for Steph Horton missing that penalty, but that was obviously a highlight. And you saw how, I'm not someone who watches. I'm going to admit it now. I don't watch that much women's football, but because obviously with it being a World Cup and England's women being involved, and as they got further and further into the tournament, obviously the interest grew, and then my interest grew in it. So I think that really has helped the women's game in this country. But also, I think the Nations League was a highlight as well for me, going to Portugal for a week or so, even though England got knocked out of the semis. I mean, I still couldn't believe when we went to the third place playoff against Switzerland. I mean, it wasn't the greatest game of football, but I just couldn't get over the amount of England fans that still made the trip. And also walking through Guimarães after to be captured by the locals, didn't know how to interpret that as a thanks for coming or please get out of here sort of thing. So no, it was a solid year. The only disappointment I have really was the under-21s at the Euros in Italy. I really felt we could have done really well in that tournament, but it just shows how crucial how vital mistakes can be in a game. I mean, we had Dean Henderson with his little mess up in goal, and and England throwing the leads away in the group games. That was the only downer really, was because I really thought we could do really well in that under-21 Euros. But other than that, I think it's been a solid year for England on the international front. Roll on 2020.
Wow, yeah, roll on 2020. Obviously, the Euros are next year, and you did mention the women there. It'll be an Olympic year for, not England, but for Great Britain. So they're going to be in tournament action. Can we come away with some silverware or goldware, I guess, as well next year?
I think there's any possibility. Again, I think with it being Great Britain, obviously means you'll be getting players from all corners of the country. But I think it will obviously be mostly an English-centric team. So I think you're going to see a lot of the players that are part of that Lionesses team, which made the semi-finals of the World Cup this year. So I'm looking forward to the Olympics. I mean, the Olympic football isn't usually something I really tune into, but again, with it, I'd really got into it when Great Britain's men's team were playing in 2012. So, no, hopefully we can come away with some silverware. And if they do, I think it will again further grow the women's game in England, for example, because now I think we're at a very critical point. Obviously, we're seeing with the attendances at all your domestic games that they're selling out the big Premier League stadiums or getting a large crowd in, rather. I think if the Great Britain squad could go to Tokyo next year, come back with some form of silver, whether it be bronze, silver or gold, I think they could really, truly inspire another generation of women's footballers.
Yes, no, I think you're right, and would be a great springboard for the Euro 2021. Cool, we're really getting ahead of ourselves here. But the men, Euro 2020 next year?
Yeah, I really hope. I think this is one of our best chances we've had in a long time. And there's a lot, for once, as I've written in a few blogs and things like that, there's a lot of optimism about England ahead of Euro 2020. Usually it'd be all a bit doom and gloom going, if we get to the quarters, it'll be fine. But it just shows how much it's changed now between the team and the fans. The fans as a group now, we're expected to go to the semis and the final. And also, it's mentioned numerous times in the press by players and management and things like that. It's a prime opportunity to win a tournament at home. I mean, playing at home is going to be so vital. I mean, having the group games here, and then if England get through the round of 16 and quarterfinals unscathed, having the semis and the final at Wembley would be something truly special. And obviously, it'd be bringing back memories of Euro 96, which I wasn't around for, but from when I speak to my dad about it, he says it was a really special time when England were doing so well in that tournament and playing at home. So hopefully more of the same. I just really hope we can do well next year, next summer's tournament.
Plenty to look forward to. Matt Asprey, thank you very much for your highlights of the year. And let me take this opportunity to wish you a Merry Christmas and all the best for the new year.
Yes, have a good Christmas too, Russell. And speak to you in the new year.
We will do. As Matt Asprey mentioned the Lionesses there, I think it's high time we took a look at their year. Whilst the men played 10 games across the year, the Lionesses played 20, but that did include 7 World Cup games in France. And that was the highlight of a bit of a mixed year for Phil Neville's girls. Now, the year couldn't have gotten off to a better start, with victory in the She Believes Cup, an annual tournament held in America. There were wins over Brazil and Japan, and a draw with the eventual World Cup winners, the USA. But in a year of 10 friendlies, only 3 of them were won. As we know, it's not friendlies that really count. The World Cup was the main objective, and to bow out at the semi-final stage was no great shame. It began with 3 group stage victories over Scotland, Argentina and Japan. Cameroon were up next in the round of 16, and the tournament, up until then, had been played in very high spirits. But the Cameroon game, well, that spilt over, mainly over a couple of VAR issues. And we've done well, actually, to get this far without mentioning VAR. But there was also the elbow to the face of Nikita Paris early on, and there was also the spitting incident. And next up were Norway, in what was the last of the Lionesses' wins for the next 6 games. It was a straightforward 3-0 win before facing the Americans in the semi-final. It wasn't to be, though, as Alex Morgan got the winner and celebrated with a sip of tea. And the 3rd and 4th place didn't go our way either, as Sweden won 2-1. But after the World Cup, the Lionesses, they played 6 further friendlies. They lost 3, drew 1 and won 2. But those 2 wins, they just didn't have the same performance that we knew that they were capable of. They weren't up to the standard we know. And subsequently, well, the Lionesses fell to 6th in the world rankings. It is their lowest since 2015. Anyway, next year brings the She Believes Cup again, and also the Olympics in Japan. It's not going to be an English team, but Phil Neville will be in charge, should he be there, and he'll be in charge of Team GB, and one that I'm sure is going to feature a lot of the English girls, and one that I'm sure we can all get behind. But the goals this year, they came from Ellen White got 9, Beth Mead got 6, Nikita Paris got 4, although it could have been a higher tally. I think she missed 3 penalties over the course of the year. Steph Horton, Jill Scott, Jodie Taylor and Bethany England got 2, and 1 goal each for Lucy Staniforth, Karen Carney, Alex Greenwood, Lucy Bronze, Fran Kirby, Georgia Stanway and Leah Williamson. And highlights for me? Well, my first Lionesses game. 2, in fact. Firstly, a trip to Belgium to see them draw 3-3 in August. Don't need much of an excuse to get the Eurostar over to Belgium. And then there was the record-breaking game at Wembley, where over 77,000 fans turned up to watch them. Unfortunately, though, this was during that period of games where those performances, they just weren't really up to scratch. And Germany ran out winners. And like the men's highlights, I spoke with a Lionesses fan for her highlights.
Now, I'd like to welcome to the Three Lions podcast. It's a hello to Maisie Threadgold. Hello there.
Hello.
Hi there. Welcome along. And 2019, or late 2019, has been quite an exciting year for you on the Lionesses front.
It has, actually. I mean, the whole year's been pretty exciting, but definitely the latter part of the year has been very exciting.
Well, and tell us about it.
I mean, I guess I'll start with the Wembley game because that's the most recent and the most exciting part of my Lionesses experience. I got invited to vlog my experience at Wembley by the Lionesses for their social medias.
Amazing.
I spent the day on the phone, really, filming myself and my experience of the sold-out game at Wembley Stadium. So I met a few people along the way and got some interviews in. But mainly they kind of asked me to just vlog myself and get myself filmed and literally just do it from my perspective. I had a few tasks that they gave me to do, so I had to do like a pre-game before I left the house, and then when I was on the way to the stadium, and then when I got there and the atmosphere and what it was like, and during the game, obviously, and then like a little rundown afterwards. So I did all of that, and then they put a few clips onto their Instagram story and did a massive collaboration video at the end and put that on their Twitter.
Excellent. So, something you enjoyed?
Yeah, absolutely. It was great fun.
Yeah, it was all good apart from the result, wasn't it?
Yeah, it wasn't the best result, but we still did it and we were still there. So
yeah, I went to the same game and it was an enjoyable day, albeit a little bit damp.
Yes, it was very wet, actually.
Yeah.
It rained a lot.
So that was in early November of 2019. Are there any other highlights from following the Lionesses you've had over the past year?
I mean, the She Believes Cup I thought was absolutely phenomenal. I don't really know how it came about, but I was working and the England-USA game was kicking off. It was quite late, and I work in a theatre, so I'd had a show on that night. And me and the guys that I work with, I'd managed to get them following the Lionesses as well. So I said, guys, look, there's a game on tonight. Can we put it on the projector afterwards? So we sat in this 400-seat auditorium that was completely empty, right in the middle with a pint and a box of Pringles. We watched the game, and it was actually brilliant. And so there's only three of us. The two boys went out to get another beer, and England scored their first goal. And I went mental, and they came in like, "Are you okay? What's going on?" I was like, "No, it's fine. We just scored." It was fantastic, and that game was brilliant. Actually, like that really resonates with me. I think every time we play the USA is just an incredible atmosphere because both countries are so passionate about the game.
And it was almost the kickstart to the year, wasn't it? We won that She Believes tournament, and it was the best ideal way to go into the World Cup, I guess.
Yeah, I think it definitely gave us a lot of backing and a lot of like motivation, and it kind of, you know, people got talking about it. A lot of people were like, "Oh no, England are actually quite good. Yeah, we could be in a chance of winning this World Cup." Unfortunately, we did lose out, but you know, again, that was to the USA who put out their best game against us.
Yes. What games from the World Cup stood out for you?
The Cameroon game definitely stood out for me. I know it probably wasn't as significant as playing, obviously, the USA, but there was a lot of controversy in that game, as I'm sure you probably remember.
Yeah.
And I think actually that was really exciting to watch. I tried watching every single game at the World Cup, and that was one of the first games where no player went down injured at all at any point. And then obviously stuff started to kick off a little, and it was exciting. It gripped you because you were invested. You were like, well, no, this is our team. Like, we're backing our country. Yeah, it was like almost like a fight where you got two sides. It was completely like England were totally behind the women from England, and these other players were giving off a little bit of a ruckus.
Yeah, it certainly ended like that, didn't it? I remember there was the piece on the touchline where I can't remember who it was that went down now, but there was certainly some confrontation going on towards the end of that game. But thankfully we came through that 3-0, didn't we?
Yes, I think so. We definitely, we came out fighting, and we proved that England are actually just a very respectable professional team. I think that is something that is so important. Like, the Lionesses are so good at what they do, and they put off such a professional. I don't know how to explain it, but they are just so head in the game. Like, they they are in love with what they do, and they do it so well.
So 2019, would you put it down as being a successful year, or has it ended on maybe a little bit of a downbeat note?
It's definitely been a successful year, 100%. Like, there's no questioning that. However, we haven't ended the best way we could, but as a team, we've improved, and we're always improving. And I think that's the main thing, really, in the long run.
And you're on Twitter and Instagram, I believe?
Yes, Twitter and Instagram at MaisieTS_.
Maisie, let's speak more in 2020.
Yes, definitely.
And there it is. Our look back on 2019 is over. Now, I hope those sleigh bells didn't annoy you too much. And apologies if you come across this in February, March time. But thanks for listening. And indeed, throughout the year too. It's been great having you along. And I always welcome your feedback. And it's always great to meet up with fans at games and put faces to names. Now, I've already got a load of episodes lined up for next year, which I hope you're going to enjoy. And that just leaves me to take this opportunity to wish you a very Merry Christmas and all the best for you and your family and your team for the forthcoming year, 2020. Now, let's hope it's a good one. Nothing less than that Henry Delaunay Trophy at Wembley on the 12th of July. So until 2020, cheers.